State of Georgia versus Nicholas James Kassotis. Count 1, malice murder, guilty. Count 2, felony murder, guilty. Count 3, aggravated assault, guilty. Count 4, concealing death of another, guilty.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Matt Johnson in today for Ted Rowland alongside Julia Janae. Thanks for being with us. We are in the state of Georgia this afternoon where Nick Kassotis has been found guilty of killing and dismembering his wife.
You saw his reaction there, closing his eyes as he heard what the jury had decided on his fate. Remember, he took the stand during trial. He claimed that a man posing to be an agent with the FBI named Jim McIntyre had been controlling his every movement for years and was to blame for all of this.
Well, let's get you back into court right now where the state is presenting final arguments before Kassotis is sentenced.
Your Honor, this case is a case that the court has obviously spent the last 2 weeks present for and listening to all of the testimony. As a result, I don't plan to go over any of that. I think Morgan may have said it best when she described how Mindi and her life impacts the world. When a sentence is rendered, I think the court has always, and I think I've even heard you say, has to evaluate not just how it impacts the defendant, but the message of rehabilitation, if possible, versus punishment, if necessary. The law in the state of Georgia entitles on a murder conviction only 3 options, essentially: the death penalty, life without parole, or life with the possibility of parole. In this case, Your Honor, the defendant is additionally facing all of the additional crimes that can run consecutively. That would be the concealing death of another, which he faces up to 10 years, possession of a knife during commission of a felony, which is mandatory 5 years consecutive, although it could be, of course, probated. And then all of the counts of possession of tools for the commission of the crime that he's facing up to 5 years for each of those. And then the 2 misdemeanors are, of course, up to 12 months. That is more than what I would refer to as natural life. The state's position, Your Honor, is that the defendant should never be released from prison, that he is a danger to society, that his testimony before this court under oath was fraud, that he was dishonest, that he perjured himself, and that, of course, is the state's position. I'm sure counsel for the defense would disagree, and I think that goes to the question, however, of whether or not there is remorse or whether there is some validation to something less than life without parole. The jury has now determined that he not only killed his wife, but that he threw her out like garbage across 3 miles with the hope that no one would ever catch him. If that depravity could not be any worse conduct to deserve life without the possibility of parole, I don't know what could. But for the good work of members of law enforcement, all of the teams that worked so hard to run every detail down, we would not be here today. And so, Your Honor, it is the state's position that the defendant in this case should get the maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole. The state will defer to the court with respect to all of the other counts, as I essentially believe that they are, you can't get more than forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor.
Your Honor, the jury has rendered its verdict. While obviously we don't agree with that, we understand that is your obligation to sentence him under that verdict. Mr. Kassotis is a highly educated man. He's a man that served his country honorably. You've heard a lot of testimony, not just from his parents, but from witnesses on the stand of his kindness. I think there is an opportunity for rehabilitation in this case, especially given his past. So I would ask the court to sentence him to life with the possibility of parole. Those other counts that can be served concurrently, that the Senates have them served concurrently. I understand there's one count that must be consecutive. So that's the position of the defense, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Weinstein, your client has the right to address the court if he so chooses.
Let me verify. He will not be addressing the court, Your Honor.
I then have him stand for sentencing. All right. Mr. Kassotis, a jury of 12 citizens in Liberty County, Georgia, has now determined beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty of the offense of murder, along with 11 other counts. This jury has spoken very clearly. It is now my duty under the law to impose a sentence that is consistent with that verdict. And it's also my duty to look at the evidence and weigh the sufficiency of that evidence. And sir, the evidence in this case is supported by a mountain of compelling evidence. This case has revealed a level of depravity that truly shocks the conscience. To put together this elaborate scheme, this web of lies, creating this fictional character, Jim McIntyre, who does not exist. You wrote fiction, and your life was a fiction, at least the last 6 or 7 years. And then you carried out, or the evidence shows that you carried out a brutal, horrific, gruesome murder of Mindi, someone who's been described by various witnesses as beautiful, kind, loving, vibrant, smart. And all of her hopes and dreams vanished in an instant. Her life tragically cut short by you. Someone who professed to love her, to care for her. Just the ultimate betrayal. And then you desecrated her body in such a vile way, discarding her remains out in a rural area of Liberty County, hoping that they would never be discovered. This shows beyond all doubt that you have no conscience. When I described to this jury this morning the elements of the crime of malice murder, the language used in the Georgia statute is that the circumstances show an abandoned and malignant heart. That describes you. You have caused so much harm to your own family, to all of those who have been impacted by your deeds. This is truly a heinous crime. So the court has considered all the facts and circumstances of the case. And the court will now impose sentence that reflects the gruesome nature of your criminal conduct. As to count 1, malice murder, the court hereby imposes a sentence of life without the possibility of parole. although you've been convicted in count 2 of felony murder, that count would merge into count 1. As to count 3, the sentence of the court for aggravated assault is 20 years to serve in the state penitentiary, and it runs consecutive to count 1. Count 4, concealing the death of another, the sentence of the court is 10 years to run concurrently to count 1. Count 5, possession of a knife during the commission of a felony is required to be consecutive, so the court imposes a sentence of 5 years consecutive to count 1. As to count 6, possession of tools for the commission of a crime, the court imposes a sentence of 5 years to serve, and that shall run concurrently to the other counts. The court will impose the same sentence on count 7, 5 years to serve, running concurrently. As to count 8, possession of tools for the commission of a crime, again, the court will impose a sentence of 5 years to run concurrently. As to count 9, possession of tools for the commission of a crime, the court imposes a sentence of 5 years, again to serve concurrently. As to count 10, possession of tools for the commission of a crime, the court imposes a sentence of 5 years to be served concurrently. Counts 11 and 12 are both misdemeanors. They carry a maximum sentence of 12 months. The court will impose a sentence of 12 months as to each count, counts 11 and 12, and they shall run concurrently. The totality of the sentence being a sentence of life without parole plus 20 years to serve. Sir, you have a right to seek post-judgment relief from your convictions of these crimes, and you can do that by filing a motion for new trial or filing a direct appeal to the appellate court. That will have to be filed within 30 days of today's date with the clerk of Superior Court in Liberty County, Georgia. If a motion for new trial is made and the court denies it, you will then have 30 days from the filing of that order to file with the clerk a notice of appeal to the appellate level. You also have a right to file a petition for habeas corpus, and that would have to be filed within 4 years of the date that the sentence and judgment in this case is deemed to be final. If you cannot afford an attorney to pursue your appellate relief, a lawyer will be appointed for you, and I'm sure that Mr. Weinstein will discuss with you all of your appellate rights. Is there anything else that needs to be placed on the record before the defendant is remanded to custody?
Your Honor, I just want to clarify. The court indicated life without parole for count 1, 20 years to serve consecutive on count 3, and 5 years to serve consecutive on count 5. Is that correct?
Correct.
Then that would be life without parole plus 20.
That is correct.
I just want to make sure the record was
I
correct.
misspoke.
Thank you, sir.
It's mandatory by law.
Correct. I just wanted to clarify.
Yes, sir.
That's the only position of the state.
He is remanded to custody. Court stands adjourned.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Kassotis walking out right there. Life without the possibility of parole plus 25.
The stiffest that the judge could give him there in the state of Georgia. This was a case that was not filed as a death penalty case, so this is the highest. He will never be allowed out of prison after this.
And that's the last time he's ever going to wear street clothes as well.